Welcome to the Pirate Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. Welcome to Pirate Broadcast, and it's a fantastic day to have, some interesting people talk about interesting things. And today we have Kon on the show, and I just want to welcome you, Kon, hanging out in Colorado today. And I just want to go back and thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your being here, and thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
You know, you're hanging out with another pirate, Elia, that I had on the show a while back, and if you haven't checked that episode out, you should probably check that episode out. So. And then, Kon, you wrote a book. Let's talk about the book, because I think that's kind of what the foundation of our conversation can evolve into is it's about leadership. It's about being adaptable. It's being, flexible in the workplace, and leadership is really important right now, I think, more than any other time.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Russ. And yeah, you're right. Elia is the one that introduced me to the show, to you, and I'm grateful to him for that. But not only that, Elia is also my writing partner in a lot of the projects that we're working on. And the most recent project that we just completed is a book called 7 Keys to Navigating a Crisis. And essentially, it's a practical guide. It's a practical guide to help people emotionally deal with the pandemic, the crisis that we're dealing with this time, but also any other crisis in their life. Personal, global, doesn't really matter. The principles are still the same.
Well, you have a backstory in some of the transitions that you've taken, kind of gone through, and I'm sure that there's a story there. Who's Kon, and why are you here, Kon? What's your story?
That's probably
we all have a story. What's the one you're going to share with us today?
Well, since we're on the topic of major catastrophes and pandemics and everything else, and how we cope with that, I
didn't mean to build that bridge. But
yeah, build that bridge right there. So, this is not the first time we're dealing with a crisis in our lives. It might be a new way of looking at it, but, we don't have to go far back to realize that we've dealt with some pretty serious stuff, even in the last, 10, 20 years. I mean, go back to 2001, 9/11, changed the way we do things.
Yeah.
Go back, Katrina, 2005. That changed a lot of things in the way we view things. Yeah. We went to, the financial crisis in 2008, major things. And, we've had pandemics leading up to this that we've managed to contain to some extent. We didn't feel the effects to the degree that we have right now, but they've been happening.
Yeah.
Well, if I look back at one of the recent crises, if you will, that happened, the financial crisis, that in itself changed my trajectory. I was spending a lot of time. I was working in big corporations and a lot of in a professional environment, if you will. My expertise was in leadership development, interpersonal skills, performance improvement, change management, all of those different things, helping my corporation at the time, but also down the road as I became more of a contributor and an entrepreneur, helping my clients with that. So my expertise has developed to be in performance management, change management. So over the years, I've been embracing that. I've been teaching that. I've been helping others with that. So 2011, after we had recovered from the initial financial crisis, the company that I worked for was bought out. And all of a sudden, I was in the middle of a whole new crisis because they proceeded to let a lot of us go. So I found myself, through no fault of my own, I'm looking for a job again, like 30 million other people today. You go through that process, and your natural instinct is to go to what you know, and you're going out looking for the next job. Well, that next job never really materialized because people were still recovering from that. Companies were still recovering from that crisis, and they were reluctant to hire on and bring people on.
What year was that, Kon?
That we're talking about late 2011 into 2012 now.
Yeah.
So I've spent a few months going through that and, having my ego stroked by people saying, you know what, we really love what you can do, but, I don't know that we can afford you with all your expertise and everything.
Yeah.
Which is another code way for saying, you're probably on the other side of the hill and you're probably a little too expensive for us. So we're going to get somebody younger that we don't have to pay as much.
Yeah.
That summer, I had another personal crisis that kind of compacted things. I lost my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I was flying back from Greece. She was back in Greece at the time. And I had plenty of time to think about things.
Yeah.
Somewhere inside me, I listened to a voice, and I picked up the phone when I got back, and I reached out to somebody that I interviewed with. And that person and I had struck up a conversation. And I asked him, I said, you mentioned that you'd love to hire me, but you didn't think that I would stay around long enough for this piece because I was overqualified. Is there any work that I can help you with? You said you were busy and things like that. Is there any contract work that I can help you with? So he says, let's do lunch. So that lunch conversation ended up with my first project, my second project, my third project. He liked what I could do. And all of a sudden he became my first client. And now we strung together a series of projects, and I found myself in a new situation. And I found myself as an accidental entrepreneur.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm putting together things to say, okay, I need to put together a business plan. I need to put together different things. I have a chance now to jump into this gig economy that was at the time forming.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to look very far in all honesty, Russ, because back in Greece, for many of us, that's how we operate.
Yeah.
We operate with a network. We operate with people that we like. And there is no credit bureau to say whether you're trustworthy. You trust the reputation that people have that you work with.
Yeah.
And for most of us,
that's a fascinating parallel. And a couple of things about this conversation, Kon, is one, I truly believe if you have a conversation long enough with an individual, you'll find a common thread. Yeah. You'll find something that you have in common. And much like yourself, I've been in and out of corporate organizations, and I have 25 years experience in companies that no longer exist. Yeah. Mergers and acquisitions, and the financial crisis, the fallout. And it was 2010. Yeah. Same thing. It's like, okay. And the first thing you have to think about, and I'm sorry about hearing about your mother, and also, that's a very devastating state of mind that you could be in.
Yeah.
You weren't willing to have those conversations. And probably like myself, your business is probably built on relationships and people you've met over the years since then.
Yeah. And that's absolutely the case. And the business kind of grew from there. It's the reputation that you start having. It's the relationships that you're building. When you offer value to people, when people perceive that authentic self that you present to them, and you're honestly approaching them and doing the best job that you can, they're more than happy to say, yes, come on back. Or, you know what? Hey, I have a friend that might be able to use your services. And that's how the business grew from there. And all of a sudden, 8 years later, I'm finding myself in a situation now where I'm looking at my business very, very differently. It's no longer just replacing a salary in the meantime while I look for a job.
Right.
I realized that, this is what I want to do. And I realized something very, very important, Russ, and this has stuck with me in my life. Mark Twain said the two most important dates in your life, the day that you're born and the day you figure out why.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that to me resonates because I realize that I am a lifelong learner. I am an observer of life. I am a lifelong learner. And as a lifelong learner, it kind of comes out of you and you want to teach. You want to share that message. So I realized that I'm a pretty darn good teacher. I'm a pretty darn good person that way. And so I've taken things that I love, things that I'm passionate about, leadership, change, performance, and I've packaged those things and I teach them and I share them. And that's part of what resonates with people.
How much of that, those elements that you're speaking about, have developed as a result of you really, like you're saying, you had the long flight back from Greece, self-reflection and self-awareness, starts evolving. And you start thinking about, I was so attached to this position and it was who I was in that life, in that circumstance. However, when you have that void and you have to redefine what you're doing, what you're focusing in on, and how you're applying yourself and your skills. It's like, it's a process, and it does take time. So what are some thoughts that you can share with us that are maybe, to give hope to the people that are right now looking at opportunities or struggling through the decision of, do I look for a job or do I look for expanding myself and my, skill set in another area? What's that process look like for most people?
Well, let's talk about that. And I think that's, if I may be so forward with this, it's a great opportunity for us to talk about the book, because the 7 keys that we have in there, they are a result of what I've experienced, what Elia has experienced in our lives. And we put this together because it is essentially a roadmap to resilience. It's a roadmap to that recovery, to not just recover, if I may, but almost to get ahead, to thrive as a result of this. So the first key that we talk about is really self-care. When you're in that moment, the first thing that you need to do is take a moment and say, okay, how am I doing? Acknowledge where I'm at. Take a moment to say, you know what? Hey, I need to think about how am I feeling right now? We start off even the book with a very straightforward process where we have a health assessment. Very straightforward, nothing overly scientific and crazy about it. It basically asks simple questions in 4 key areas. How am I doing physically? We're looking at the situation right now, and as a result of the last 2 months of us being cooped up and kind of having to protect ourselves and others, people are talking about the COVID-15, as in the 15 pounds that we all put on because we're not doing anything right now. So physically, there's a rise in people seeking out alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, junk food, other distractions to kind of take themselves away because they're not coping with the real issues. We talk about things from a mental standpoint. There is a huge rise in mental illness right now, in mental problems. We already had a problem beforehand. In the last month or so that we've been tracking data, they're reporting as much as 700% increase in mental health issues. Not 7, not 70, 700, 7-fold.
Wow.
That's tremendous. We're going to have a fallout. Once we've coped with the clinical issues of this pandemic, we have a mental health crisis that's going to be coming our way.
Well, and the stress and everything that comes along with it it's not surprising that people, the fear of not knowing what's going on, the loss of structure, the failure to know an answer really brings a lot of stress on a lot of people.
Absolutely. And that's part of what we're talking about, because then you go into, emotionally, how am I dealing with this? And even spiritually. And I'm not talking about spiritual necessarily in the religious sense, but spiritually in however you perceive that higher power, that foundation that you have. Could be nature, it could be whatever else might be the case. Whatever the situation, how are you doing in that? And we provide answers for that. And the first answer comes from that self-care, really figuring things out. We focus on ourselves. Our healthcare workers who are the front line in all of this, we have a section on self-care for healthcare. They are the manifestation of this crisis in that way. They are the warriors out there that are feeling the peaks of all of this stuff. But we're all feeling it to some extent.
And I want to give a shout out to all the caregivers, all the frontline people, all of the essential workers that are continuing to support this and continuing to do their due diligence.
Correct.
And so hats off and thank you. So that's all.
Yeah, we can never thank them enough.
Never thank them enough. So in the book, in the seven steps, I mean, it sounds like a framework designed for this circumstance exactly. So
correct. And it's all about building that resilience and that capability from that piece. We go into the second step, and this is exactly what you're talking about: awareness. Listen to yourself, listen to your body. I listened to that voice inside me when I was flying back from Greece that day. I listened to my voice throughout this process. Elia and I spoke about this. This book came together, Russ, in a matter of about 45 days.
Yeah.
We were both looking around and, feeling aware of what's going on in this process. And, and you feel that same sense of loss that you do in any sort of crisis, in that, because it is a loss and you're grieving in many ways. Why? Because it's a transition, and transitions have a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? But it's reversed. It starts with the ending, because what we've done is we've ended the way that we used to do things. That old normal is gone.
Yeah.
That's done. So we're
evaporated.
Yeah, we're grieving that. We feel like, we used to complain, oh, this commute is so long. Oh, these hours are so long. Oh, I wish I could see my family. And now we're grieving that. We wish we could go back to that, many of us.
Well, and it's only until you've had a period of time in that grieving process to look back and think, I was miserable.
Correct.
This was not healthy.
Correct.
And I needed to do something else. I just didn't know that I needed to do something else because it's
correct. And that's part of what we're trying to do with this. So you go from that ending, that denial, anger, frustration, to acceptance. And now you're in this free fall. Right now, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know what this new normal is look like. It's like we're free falling. And when you're free falling, you don't feel like you have control. You're not holding on to anything stable. And then you finally get to the other side with that new beginning. And that's the opportunity for us to move forward in a different way and create that new normal the way we want it to be. And that's where we're at. When I had my personal crisis, when I found myself in that situation, I looked at it and I said, okay, what am I going to do? Because we can react very differently. People react in what we call 4 different modes. You know, the first typical reaction is the victim mode. And you're in that situation right now where you're feeling sorry for yourself, poor me, and this, that, and the other. Why is this happening to me again? As if the whole world is conspiring to ruin this.
Yeah.
I have a senior in my house that she's never going to know what a graduation party is going to look like.
Right.
That way. She's going to look at life very, very differently. She could sit here and feel miserable and sorry for herself. She's not. She's teaching me that I need to look forward from that piece. So victim mode is one of the modes we get into. The other one is the critic mode, where, you know what, we look at everything and we come from that perspective of, oh, that's stupid. You know, put a mask on. That's stupid. Don't put a mask on. Let's go forward the way things were. That's stupid. And all of a sudden now, we're in that situation where we're criticizing everything, but we're not offering any solutions. We're just throwing rocks at things.
Yeah.
And the third mode,
don't bring me problems, bring me solutions.
Correct.
Yeah.
The third mode is the bystander mode, the part where you're frozen up, where you're looking around going, okay, what should I do here? Maybe I should let Russ handle this because he seems to know what he's doing. I'm just going to wait and see. Russ, we love change. You go first.
Yeah.
You dip your toe in.
We're waiting for somebody to take ownership of the future here.
Correct.
And well, or you become the bystander critic where it's like, I don't want him in front of me. It's like, you know, and it's a dilemma because we really have to decide. And that's what responsibility for ourselves. Correct. That's where responsibility for ourselves really kicks in. And I'm sure that's part of the process in your book as well. So.
Right. And what did you and I talk about? What happens when you take responsibility? What's that nasty thing?
A bad thing happens. You have no one else to blame.
Exactly. And that's where we end up with the navigator mode, because the fourth mode is the navigator mode. And that's why we called the book Navigating a Crisis. A navigator doesn't necessarily have all the answers, but what a navigator does is acknowledges, listens to his own emotions or her emotions. They realize what's happening and they start taking action individually and with others. They recognize the emotional reactions that people have. Whereas the first 3 are not really very productive. And you need to ask ourselves, because we can all feel it. I've been a victim. I've felt like a critic at times. We all do. But I try to put myself in the navigator space and I say, okay, how do I get there? What am I missing? Maybe I'm missing information. Maybe I'm missing options. Maybe I'm missing somebody to hear me complain for a while. And then I can get off my pity party and start moving forward. Whatever it is that I need, find it, put yourself in that navigator mode.
And really, I encourage people right now, Kon, more than any other time. You know, you're a lifelong learner. You know, I recognize that right from the go. And if people take this moment, if they have spare time, you know, I've been a remote worker for 10 years, so my life inherently hasn't changed drastically. And, you know, fortunately, thank you. And, however, right now is amazing time to be learning a new skill or improving the skill that you have on a subject that is going to be useful going forward. And even though you had a job in the past, there is an abundance of opportunity in the future, regardless of how this thing evolves, because opportunity arrives in the midst of crisis and change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in that midst, Russ, we got to look at things. And part of what makes it difficult for people is they have a hard time distinguishing between two things that are very similar: danger and fear. Danger is very, very real. We need to manage that danger. We need to look look at that and say, you know what? Hey, if we're dealing a pandemic that we don't know exactly how this is spreading, somebody comes close to me and starts coughing in my face, that's danger.
Yeah.
Me being paralyzed by fear by things that have not happened yet or probably won't happen is not helpful. So we've got to start navigating throughout that. Again, use your experience, use what you know, your common sense to start looking through this. So self-care, awareness, we go into flexibility. And now flexibility is about now in this free fall that we're in, become more adaptable from that piece. It's not the strong that will survive and thrive. It's the flexible. To your point, your life hasn't changed very much, but you've adapted from that. From 2010, you changed. From 2012, I changed.
Yeah.
And we use the parable of the oak tree and the palm tree. When I ask people, you know, what would you rather be, an oak tree and a palm tree? Most of them puff up their chest and say, I'd love to be an oak tree, strong, you know, immovable. Well, you know what? In a major storm, that immovability, if you will, that inflexibility that the oak tree has, it's its own demise because branches break, it gets uprooted. Whereas the palm tree, it'll just bend, it'll flex, and it'll come back up when the storm is over. It shows that resilience and that ability to move that way. So that's huge from that perspective. And
flexible
then
we can be.
Yeah. Yep.
You're a lot more flexible and you're a lot more adaptable than you give yourself credit for. So we're here to give you credit. We're here to give you some inspiration to think about how you can see a different future for you and a different outcome.
Very good. And that's part of it. So start preparing. That's the fourth key. Start preparing. If you know that things are coming, or if you anticipate things might happen, there's a likelihood that might happen. Prepare for them. You know what? If I need to know I'm not going to be stuck in my house, do I have, do I have stock in there? What do I need to prepare for? You're not going to go out camping without a backpack full of supplies.
Right.
You're not going to do those things. I mean, if you live in anywhere in the country that's dealing with earthquakes, with hurricanes, with those kind of natural disasters, if you're not prepared, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
You need to do something about that. You know it's going to happen.
It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of time.
Correct. And it's the same with crises in our lives. But then you go from preparation to action. This is where the empowering part comes in. When you start taking action individually and with others, Russ, that's the empowering feeling. That's when you start making good things happen and you start taking control back in your life. And then you keep going with that, but not just action. I mean, being a navigator is not just about being frou-frou positive all the time and thinking that it's all sunshine and rainbows. A navigator, a good navigator, sees where the problems are, where the obstacles are, and navigates around them. So you're able to find ways to do that. You're not just stuck in one way of doing things. And then you take that positive attitude. You know, I mentioned my daughter, and I need to take a moment and forgive me. This is a very personal thing. Today's her 18th birthday. So happy birthday, my beautiful, beautiful daughter, Anna.
Happy birthday. It's my sister's birthday.
Oh, happy
birthday, Sheila.
There you go. So you see that and you say, you know what? Hey, I've watched her. She's managed in this last semester of hers to actually score a perfect score, 5.0.
Oh, wow.
Learning. She's adapted to that situation and she's done amazingly. So she's graduating and going to the school where she wants to be. But I watch her. She has one of her little health trackers on her wrist. Every hour, without question, without prompt from any one of us, she gets up, goes, Dad, it's walk o'clock. And she starts walking around the room.
Walk o'clock.
Walk o'clock, Dad. So she goes around, and that's how she makes sure that she does her part to go there. But she has a positive attitude. That strength that comes from.
I think that makes such a huge difference in what, and that's, Kon, I really have to applaud, the pirate broadcast and the pirate community. That's kind of what the whole premise is, it's like we can have a little bit of positive impact on the world by sharing it with others, sharing it amongst ourselves in the community and making sure that we include people into the conversation. So
absolutely,
I really have to, I can't agree with you more on the positive feedback on that.
And speaking of that with our community and everything else, the last part, the last step, the last key is kindness. And I know that you're a big fan of that. You're a big ambassador of kindness with others. I mean, we start off with being kind to ourselves with self-care, and we finish with kindness towards others. And it comes full circle that way, because the minute you start looking at how can I help my neighbor, how can I help somebody that's not as fortunate as I am, get you out of your headspace. It starts changing that mentality of you. You stop feeling sorry for yourself. And now you're starting to help others. You're reaching out. And that's a very empowering feeling. Because, because you get as much out of that kindness as the other person does, and maybe even more.
Yeah. I was having a conversation yesterday. I think it was yesterday. I don't know. It's all rolling together. And it was, you know, a lot of people that enjoy helping others also have a tendency to be hesitant to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what that's all about. However, there's probably, you know, a little bit more that would probably require another show. You and Elia on, and we could talk about this and have a session. But the reality is that I think just the big message and the takeaway I want to leave today with the pirate community is thank you, Kon, for being here, and also the fact that, you know, you can make a difference. You can make a difference in your life. You can make a difference in other people's lives, and you can also encourage a little bit more kindness. You know, have a little empathy, because you never know who's going through what.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I say, you know, share a smile. They're free. You give one away, and all of a sudden you have two, and the next thing you know, it's just all over the place. Yeah. And hopefully that can encourage some people to think about how they're impacting other people around them. Because if you're in the circle of and you're able to share some kindness and some, you know, a little bit of positive influence, it just feels so much different than being that negative critic that we're talking about.
Yeah, and it becomes a contagious thing. It becomes thing, and all of a sudden that tide starts lifting all of us. We start seeing the end, and we start seeing a situation where we can all flourish from that and help each other come closer together.
Yeah. Hey, I want to give, before we wrap up here, and I know that you have a busy day and I have to take off, but I do want to recognize some of the people. You know, it's been amazing here, and I know Jill Sullivan is Angie. Angie's here. She's there, and I just love the fact that you know, the kindness giver you know, is talking about this, and Gabriel's here saying hello. You know, people are there, and Angie has some great things to say. You know, it's like, you don't need to complain. Just bring me a solution. You know, identify the problem, but bring me a solution. So it's really, you know, it's really. Oh, and here, Angie also said,
thank you.
And then here's Gail. Gail is also looking forward to Brian Schuleman. So Gail's from Houston, a friend, a long-term friend from Houston. And then Randy Martin's up from Toronto. So we got people all over. And I know that, you know, we have an opportunity to share a little bit of kindness, a little bit of generosity. And so what's the roadmap for Kon in the next 18 months in terms of the book and helping others and encouraging people and developing your strategy for processing through this event?
Well, thank you for asking the question, Russ. I mean, Dr. Elia and I have, you know, we didn't start off with this as a business venture. We started off with an impulse, we were compelled to write something to help people, to give back. Now we want to take that message out over the next 18 months and have the ability to spread the word out there. And hopefully, you know, people can take different nuggets that will help them get through this. Sometimes that's all you need. One or two little pieces, one or two little nuggets that will help you, you know, move forward in your own way. That's what a good coach does. You know, you help people discover what they already have inside them. So the next 18 months for us is about getting the message out there with people like yourself, with the Pirate group out here. Ahoy to all of them, and really being able to kind of get that message out of there. If people like it, share it, get out there.
Yeah.
And we hope to be able to do. So Dr. Elia and I hope to be back with you at some point to kind of share even some more information and updates with the Pirate Broadcast.
Absolutely. And if you're not connected to Kon, go connect with him. Tell him Russ sent you. He's a pirate. He's in the community. If you're not connected with the community, we have a Facebook group. You can you can follow on YouTube, you can follow on Twitter, you can follow on social medias, like, comment, and share. If you like this, if you find this brings you value, please share it. Because I mean, this is information that we need to be broadcasting on a regular basis. Let's not get into the loop of all of the doom and gloom and everything that the news would have us believe, because I think there's a lot of good things going on in the world today, a lot of empathy in place, I see a lot of people being kind and generous and doing good work. So let's continue this process, and let's continue to grow. And Kon, appreciate your opportunity to share the opportunity with all of the pirate community and the people that happen to catch this. And I look forward to hearing more and future discussions, because it's important work. Thank you for being here. And with that, kindness is cool, smiles are free, and you enjoy the day. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.